Okay guys, so we're going to talk about grid systems and how we manage grids in InDesign. And I have InDesign open now, and when you have InDesign open for the first time, assuming it's not already open, first time for that day, you'll have this InDesign window that comes up, and it has some nice little places where you can go so you don't have to go up to File and other places. So here we're going to create a new document, and so there's a new document button located under the Create New area. So we're going to click on that. Now, what is the format for this project? 10 by 10 inches. Now, the thing about this window is the measurement in InDesign is they use typographic measurements. And typographic measurements are points and picas. So you'll see P's and then numbers after the P. So you won't see inches right away. I'm going to teach you guys or share with you how to change that once we open the document. So this is a little odd at first, is looking at these measurements. Before we get into the measurements, I'm going to uncheck the facing pages option. It's 3 items down and over to the right near the center. What facing pages is great for is for like books or brochures, multiple page documents. Well, these are going to be single panels. We can create 3 single panels in one InDesign file, okay? But they shouldn't act like a book. So uncheck facing pages. Now, here where it says page size, there is no 10 by 10. Okay, so we have to type in the width 10, but if we don't put the abbreviation for inches in there, it will assume this is 10 picas. So put 10 and then spacebar and then IN. And then when you hit the tab key, it will go to the next field, which is the height. Ooh, look, 10 inches changed to 60 picas. 10 inches and 60 picas are the same thing. Now, I have a math question for you. If there's 10 inches and it equals 60 picas, how many picas are in an inch? 6. He was reading my mind. So the typographic measurement of picas means that 1 pica is 1/6 of an inch. And I can't remember the decimal point equivalent to that. 0.917, well, we'll deal with it later. But when you have 6 picas, that equals an inch, okay? That's why it automatically, when I typed in 10 space IN, it converted it to 60 picas. If you're lost, don't worry, we'll talk more about picas and points later. So in here I'm going to type in 10 spacebar IN. Oops, that's not a 0, that's a number. Oh, there we go. And I hit the tab key. Now I have a width and a height of 10 inches by 10 inches, which is the equivalent to 60 picas by 60 picas. Are we on board?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Now, which orientation do I use, portrait or landscape?
Portrait.
It won't matter. It's square. That was a trick question. I know, I'm tricky like that. Now, here is where we're going to build our grid in our columns and our margins. These are really important. Now, I can build several grids in one document. Now, it gets a little complicated, but if we slow it down and I share with you in a slower fashion, you'll get it. Now, in the grid book that's being passed around right now, oftentimes when you're newer to design, starting with fewer columns is a nice way to get to know how to deal with grids. So in the columns, I'm going to put 2. You guys know what columns are, first off?
The vertical.
They go up and down, like in a newspaper. You see those columns of type, body copy or text type. Those are columns. In this case, I'm going to have 2 columns. Does anybody know what the gutter is? If you float your cursor over there, it'll tell you.
Yeah. Is that like your margins?
It's related to space, and margins also are space, but they're not necessarily a margin. The gutter is the space between the columns, not outside on the edges. You're close. So the gutter, it typically is 1 pica. If you had a really tiny book like you were printing for Barbie, the gutter would be smaller. If you're making a little Barbie-sized book for some reason. But if you're making a fairly big coffee table book, you might actually have the gutters be wider. But most of the time, the gutter is about 1 pica. You can change it, but we'll just leave it at 1 pica. A 10 by 10 document, 1 pica gutter is plenty. Now, the next thing is margins. What are margins? The space outside the columns of type that not only share, they not only butt up to the edge of the type, they also butt up to the edge of what? The page. Yeah. We like to, some people, to help you understand what they're for, some teachers have called them safety margins. Where are your safety margins? And why they call them that is because they don't want your body copy to go crowding out into these margins and somehow accidentally get cut off. So these margins really are wonderful for making sure your type is far enough in from the edge of the cut edge of the page. Okay? Now, Tyler is probably going to be able to answer this question because he knows my mind already. What is 3 picas equal to as far as this a half an inch? Right now, this is default set to have a 1/2 inch of white space. Now you can put images out in the white space and you can put really big type out in that white space, but those safety margins are for the body copy. A 1/2 inch of safety space, safety margin, around or outside of those columns, the edge of the columns, the far outside edge of the columns, not between the columns. Now, if you want to change these, you uncheck this lock. Right now the lock is linked and it makes all the settings the same. If I click on that, it unlinks and it makes all the settings not the same, okay? So if it's unchecked, you can set up these as variables, and so I would like to do that. Yes?
Really quickly, that designation or the unit lowercase p 0, is that pica?
The lowercase p is pica, and the 0 means there's no points after that.
Oh, so there's pica points.
Picas are the big chunks and points are tiny. Guys, there's 72 points in an inch. Just a little bit thicker than human hair, really. A couple hairs, maybe 3. I think we did lay down hairs one time and we measured it as 3 hairs. So points, they're small increments. Typography itself, the fonts. Typography itself is measured in points, not picas. The grid is measured in picas. The type itself is measured in points. Okay? So if I were to type P11, that means 11 points. P11 means 0 pica, 11 points. Okay? So this is 3 picas with no points. Now, in your book, you'll learn this later, but I'm going to share this with you now. There's mathematical center and there's optical center. And some of you already know this from your photo classes and things like that. When people mount photos, I don't know if you, depends on your teacher, does your teacher have you have the same amount of space all the way around? Or is there additional space somewhere? There should be additional space on the bottom. Uh-oh. There should be additional space on the bottom. The reason why is we live in a world where we have gravity, and when things don't have a little bit of padded space at the bottom, a little bit more room at the bottom, they seem like they are a little bottom heavy. Optical center is just above mathematical center, meaning optical is what we prefer as human beings. Okay? So optical spacing is actually a lot of what we use when we're doing layouts and things like that. Optical spacing versus mathematical spacing. So just know that human beings tend to prefer optical spacing, and that center point is slightly above mathematical center. You guys with me? So now your photos, you need to mount those with every space around it should be equal, except the bottom should have a little extra padding. Now you know.
It just feels better?
It feels better, yeah.
That's how the Parthenon was built.
That's how the Parthenon, yes. We can get into the golden ratio and the golden mean, and we can study this mathematics that has gone all the way back to Greek times. The Parthenon she mentioned was built with the idea of this mathematics. And if you'd like to, you can look up the golden ratio or the golden mean. Oops, I didn't mean to go to Chrome. And it is just incredible. And if you look up the mathematical equation, it's just awesome. This is the sexiest form known to man. I mean, okay, men, we know there's a form you like other than this, but sorry. But this is, God, it's so fun. It's hard to explain, but what they've done is, it's not quite the rule of thirds, but it's close. They divide this up. This is a perfect square, and this is so much a percentage of the square. Well, if you look here, this shape right here, this rectangle right in here, is exactly the same in proportion to the large rectangle that's around it. So what they do is they do this division and they shrink it and rotate it. They divide it again, they shrink it and rotate it. They divide it again and they shrink it and they rotate it. And they park it inside the previous little rectangle. And then it's a fractal, yeah, because it goes on forever. Fractals are awesome. If you don't know what he's talking about, they are freaking awesome. So, oh, blow your mind away kind of stuff. But then they took this curve, they decided to draw a curve where the outside edges meet. And that curve, if you use this mathematics, that curve will spiral forever and ever and ever. It's infinite. How many of you guys knew about the golden ratio before? We know a couple of you did. It's a very interesting thing to employ. The problem is when you're really conscientious about it, when you're trying to design with it in mind, you screw everything up. I had a very intelligent student, a Thomas. Beautiful, did beautiful work. And as soon as I shared this golden ratio with him, he started printing out templates of it in like tracing paper and on acetate, and he started to try to design purposefully around it. I'm like, Thomas, what happened to your designs? They were so contrived and forced. I said, no, throw that away. Or put it aside, don't throw it away. So design and then lay the golden ratio over it and see if you have to tweak. Because we had some, now I'm not saying you'll have the same problem that a Thomas had, but I really saw his design starting to go phew, downhill because he was way too conscientious of it and his designs became way too forced. Okay. And there may be a fractal in here. That's not a fractal. But yes, the Parthenon, when we did that Google search, you see what came up? The Parthenon. And it shows how that mathematically that the Greeks used the golden ratio in order to deal with the mathematics for this architecturally significant piece of art or building.
I understand too about the Parthenon that they built the columns that receded from the street a little bit taller,
Yeah.
so the ratio didn't visually change.
Yeah, they did a lot of visual things because when you stood there as a human being only 5 foot to 6 foot tall, your perception standing that low, they had to make up for some things because we're standing this tall and the Parthenon is really, really, really big. So yes, they did some fudging around, I guess, to make scale feel better. That's my make scale feel better. That's my excellent vocabulary for the day. Okay, let's go back to this. Guys, I get a little off topic, but it's all relative, okay? So I'll come back to this. Now, let's go ahead and set our margins to be something other than 3, 3, and 3, and 3. So make sure that you have the link so the chain is unlinked. Maybe I want, I don't know, maybe I want a 5 pica margin. This is a little less than an inch. Maybe I want that on the top, and I'll put on the left and the right. Now, you guys don't have to use 5 pica. I'm just using this as an example. And then the bottom, I want that to be bigger. I might make that, let's do 7 picas. Now, that's going to be a little over an inch, okay? It's going to be 1 inch plus 1/6. So this is actually 5/6 of an inch all the way around. And the bottom, or on all sides except the bottom, and the bottom is 1 1/6 of an inch. Now, we don't use 1/6 on a ruler. So here we go. Oh, look there. Now, this is my Pages panel. If you don't see your Pages panel, over here are some of the panels that people use on a frequent basis. Just click on the one that says Pages. If for some reason, let me show you how to get rid of it on accident. Ooh, it's gone. If for some reason Pages is not over there, if you need a panel and it's not here, all panels are found under Window, which is at the very top. window, and oh, there's Pages that also has a keyboard shortcut, Command and the F12 key, and it will pop back up. If I want to bring it back over here and dock it, I'll just grab it, and there it is. Okay? If you just click on it, it flies out and it comes back in. So this is parked on that little dock over there. In the Pages panel, you will see page 1, and it is a 2-column page. See if I can reduce that down. There we go. I can click on this edge and make this skinnier or thinner there. And this is 2 columns, 1 pica gutter between the columns, 5 picas wide for my safety margin. The black line, guys, oh, you got to get this right. I tell you, sometimes I'll have folks all semester long and they can't get this right. Pay close attention. The black line is the edge of the page. I have so many people design right here, and they'll put a whole big color or texture back there, and they stop right here. And they think that's where you cut it. Nope, you cut it here. Okay, this is just where you end the body copy. Body copy doesn't go past the pink, unless you can probably bring it over past this gutter. But body copy, that's what these pink lines are for, is to try to restrain that body copy. If you have a big headline, I don't care if you break that grid. If you have a big old image, I don't care if you break that grid and take it all the way to the edge and bleed it off. Body copy is a whole other story. Now, if you are a rebel rouser, do you guys think I could be a rebel rouser? I'm stealing cars at 13. Wait, I'm recording this. I'm taking drives test drives when I should. If you are a real rebel rouser and you want to see somebody who breaks every rule possible, but they do it successfully, look up David Carson. David Carson, graphic designer. He don't use grids. Actually, he does. He just acts like they don't even exist. They're not there. I think he does use them, but boy, he breaks every rule under the sun. And if you are a rule breaker and a rebel rouser, you just check out some Dave Carson. He actually was the guy who started the whole grunge movement.
The what?
Grunge movement. The grunge movement.
You said movie.
Oh, the grunge movie? What? The grunge movement. Okay, but we're going to not be Dave Carson for now, but I like for you guys to know about him. Now, maybe I want to do a couple of different kinds of grids. This is just a beginner grid, 2-column. Actually, the most basic grid is 1 column, which means there's no gutter there. That's pretty boring. Okay, so we're going to create a new page in here. We're going to create the second page. We're going to have a different grid structure. Now, this can get a little tricky in InDesign if you don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to share with you how to do it. Now, first I need to add a page in InDesign. So there's a few different ways to do this. One is I can right-click in the Pages panel. So this is the Pages panel. Right-click and go to Insert Pages, and I say, yeah, I just want 1. Thanks. And it puts a page 2 in there. Now, if I double-click on page 2, it is 2 columns, because when I started the document started with 2 columns.
Mine started with 1.
With 1? Well, that's okay, because you're going to just make a 2-column grid now, okay? You forgot to type in 2 columns, I think. When you had your document set up, you may have forgotten to put the 2 in there. But that's okay, because I'm going to share with you how not to have to close this out and make a new document. When I was new to this, I was like, oh, darn it, I only have 1 column. Now I close it out, and I don't save it, I make a new document because I don't know any better. But if you need to alter a document grid, just double-click on that page that you want to alter. So maybe yours is page 1 in this case. I'm going to double-click on page 2. And here's how you alter your grid. It won't change page 1. It'll only affect the page that I'm on. You go to Layout. Okay, Layout is found. It's the 3rd item up in the menu. You click on Layout. And I just read. I'm like, pages, no. Margins and columns. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Layout, margins, and columns. I'll be darned. There's that bottom half of that window that we put in there earlier. So for Scott, you'll type in number of columns 2. And don't worry about enable layout adjustments. That's something that's a little too advanced for us right now. But here, I might, since I already have a 2-column grid, I'm going to type in 3. And the preview is on, but you can't see it happening. For preview to work, you have to uncheck it and then check it again. Oh, look, 3 columns. Okay, so even though preview is on, you have to kind of uncheck it, then check it, and then, or even hit tab key or something, and you'll see it. Now I have a 3-column grid. I hit OK, because I like it. I'll go back to page 1. Oh, it's still a 2-column grid. So I'm not changing the entire document pages, all of them at once. I'll share with you how to do that later. What I'm doing is I'm making various grid structures within one InDesign document. Guys, let me tell you, some of the professionals don't even know how to do this. And it's not, was that hard?
No.
No. Okay, now you tell me, how do I make another page? I'm going to do a 4-column grid. How do I make another page? Right click, insert pages, hit OK. That's not hard. Now, look, it's a 2-column grid. Why is it a 2-column grid? Because when I started the document, it's kind of grandfathered in. InDesign says, well, you started with a 2-column grid, so I'm going to keep on building. When you add a page, I'm going to make it a 2-column grid until you say otherwise. Well, InDesign, I'd like otherwise. How do I get this to be a 4-column grid? Oh, you're in a whole other level here. Not yet. You're a little early here. If I did an A master, you know what happened? It'll turn them all to 4-column. Yeah.
That's a question I actually have. When you're doing this, for some strange reason, I have 2 A masters opposed to 1.
Well, we aren't actually. I didn't want to go into A masters today.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, you guys are getting a little. I mean, I know all about the master pages, but we're not making several master pages. That is a nice thought, though. But we're just going to individually have them in this one document for now. Don't worry about A masters, guys. I will definitely get to A master. I used to call him A master A. He was like the best type rapper in the world. Now it used to be called A master A. Now he's just A master. So you guys are a little bit more advanced thinking, or maybe you know something that other people don't know about these A masters. We'll hold off till another time. So I'm on page 3. Scott, you might be on page 2 if you're, haven't added a second column. Now I want to do how many columns was I going to do? 4. So what do? Layout, margins and columns, and 4. Voila! Now we are sketching. Let me tell you about columns. What I've learned about columns in the 100 years I've used them. Well, okay, 30 years I've used them. Okay, 20 years. Okay, I'm really, really young. 10. Oh. When you're new to this, keeping control of a few columns such as this, that seems to be plenty. 4 columns on this size is plenty when you're starting out. But when you're a little bit more advanced and you're already working with this stuff, the more columns, the more options you have. The fewer columns, the fewer options you have for alignment and having a lot of variety in the layout. In the grid book that's going around, you will see as you're perusing through that or gleaning through that there are some layouts in there that just have a few columns, and then there's some that have tons of them. The more columns you have, the more places you have for alignment. And you can get I find it more fun to work with. So let's put columns on steroids. You ready? Let's create another page. Now let me show you. Yes, Jared.
One more question.
That's
When I
fine.
did the insert page, it gave me 2 more columns, but I got another.
Page on the left of it?
Yeah.
Okay. You forgot when you created the new document. What Jeremy has is he forgot to click off of facing pages when he started the new document. He has a facing pages layout. Now you're really going into advanced stuff on how to fix that. Let me see if I can do it here. File, document setup. Okay, go to File. Let's see if this will work, Jeremy. File, document setup, and uncheck facing pages. Then hit OK and see if, make sure it's not checked. Just hit OK and see if it broke them apart. It did it.
Woo.
It's a good thing I just figured this out yesterday.
Now I gotta get the fourth column.
Yeah, now you gotta get to 4 columns. So maybe create a new page and break that down into 4 columns. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I
Think you can? Good. Okay, now let's get jiggy with it. Let's put a lot of columns in there. How's that sound? Okay, now you don't want so many that you can't understand what's a column and what's a gutter, okay? Let's create another page. Now let me show you another way to make a page. You know, when you right click and you tell it new pages, that's taking some time, is it not? Time is money. Let's do it the fast way. Down at the bottom of your pages panel, you have a trash can, a little dog-eared page, and then a page size. If you just click on that little dog-eared page, it pops one in there. Bam! Just like that. Time's money. I'm not going to tell them a shortcut yet. I always start out long, and then we go so you guys can appreciate spending less time. Well, bam! There's page 4. Page 4, of course, is a 2 column because it's grandfathered in from when we started the document. But we're going to change it. So we know, you guys know now, we've done this 2 or 3 times. You go to layout, right? Layout, margins, and columns. Okay. Let's see. Shall I try an 8 column grid? Dare I? I don't know. Let's see what it looks like. Let's do 8.
I dare you.
I'm hitting the tab key. Okay, I hit the tab key, which went to the other field, but you can see in the preview, because preview is selected, that's a lot of columns, but you can tell the difference between the column width and the gutter width. If you start building grids and you can't tell the difference between a column and a gutter, you're in trouble there. Okay, so this is pushing it, but this works. This 8 column grid on this 10 by 10 inch page is going to give me so many options for alignment. I like options, don't you? I don't like restriction. Sometimes I have to exercise restraint, but if I don't have to, and I can push a little bit, there it is. All right? Now, let me blow your minds away here. You guys ready to get blown away?
Not really.
Oh, come on, it's cool. An 8 column grid can be a 4 column grid. An 8 column grid can be a 2 column grid. An 8 column grid can be a 3 column grid, 2 of those being equal, the third one being smaller. How is that? Well, I'm just going to grab, you guys don't have to do this. This is just for demonstration. I'm just going to grab this box. I'm going to draw across these grid lines. Let me fill it with a color. Swatches, I want to fill that with, let's just say black. There's 1 column. I am breaking the grid or going across columns. And here's another column. By the way, Alt drag is the same as copy and paste, but you have a lot more control. Option drag, Alt drag, whichever you want to call it. On the Mac, it's an Option key, but there's a little Alt there too. Alt drag is copy and paste. When you copy and paste, you don't have any control where it pastes to. But when you Alt and drag, you have absolute control. And then the last column, whoa, hello, these roller balls are crazy here. The last column, I am going to Alt drag this over, and then I can use one of these anchor points and move it so that's the 3rd column. This is called an asymmetrical grid, right? It's asymmetrical, meaning it's not perfect symmetry. So even in our typography book, the blue book, let me find a good sheet here. Oh, they didn't use asymmetry. I thought they had an asymmetrical grid here. Oh. They did break the grid a couple ways. They may have had an 8 to 12 column grid because on some of the pages it's 2 columns, perfect symmetry, and on other pages they run across columns and they have white space on each side, and it looks like a maybe that's from a multi-column grid. It may be the same grid, but they're using multiple columns so they can do that. Okay? You guys with me on grids? It's not super science, is it? However, I've had to spend hours and hours and hours developing grids. When I was in high school, we had to. They want us to understand grids. Now, grids, the way I'm describing them, really discuss more vertical alignment than they do horizontal alignment. There is no horizontal grid. But But if you wanted to line something horizontally, you can pull horizontal grid lines in yourself. You can't tell the computer, hey, make a horizontal grid. It doesn't have it. Okay? So, when you're in InDesign and you're saying, well, you know, I might want to break this up a little bit. And I don't worry too much about it until I start placing elements, and then I'm like, ooh, there's the bottom of that photo. Let me pull a grid line down there. Okay? Or there's the bottom of that type. Let me pull the grid line down to the bottom of the type. I usually don't do a horizontal grid until I start designing, because I don't know how big my images are and what the proportions are going to be to the width of the columns and that kind of thing. So let me show you an example. I'll just download any old image from the internet and I'll show you how I would deal with horizontal grids. Okay, so let me just get an image from the internet. It's not going to be anything fancy here. I like monkeys. I had monkeys as a kid as pets. So I am going to do monkey picture. The kind of monkey I had, this one. That's the kind of monkey I had. That's called a capuchin. Capuchin, depending on who you talk to. But it was named after, after the Capuchin monks. It's a Capuchin monkey. Save images. I'm going to go to the desktop. Angry monkey. That sounds good to me. I don't need those numbers. Now, normally I wouldn't use JPEGs in print. This is just for demonstration. Normally I would use TIFFs. And I will explain to you at a later date how to manage that stuff. Okay? This is just to show you how I might manage horizontal grids. Okay, I'm going to go to another page just because that has all those black bars. Now, you'll need to know this information, so I'm a little premature in sharing this with you. You'll need to know it anyway, but I just go to File and Place. Do not copy and paste images and text from other pieces of software. InDesign is always File and Place. So you might want to like tattoo that. Hey, Larry, you got some room on that arm? We want to tattoo. Always go File, Place, and InDesign. Never copy, paste. So File, Place. Now I have to figure out where did I put the monkey. Well, he's on the desktop. I grab him, I hit open. I have a loaded cursor, and I can click anywhere. And I'm going to bring him into this grid. My problem is he doesn't fit within my grid lines. You don't want him going over that gutter. You want him to be short of the gutter. And then so I need to shrink him down, and I need to make sure he stays in proportion. This is like the keyboard shortcut thing of the semester. You will use this all of the time. Shift Command on a Mac, Shift Command or Shift Control on a PC, Shift and Command, and then click and drag on an image or type or anything, their box, and it will proportionally scale it. Okay? You don't want things stretched out of proportion. It just drives me nuts. It drives people looking at your portfolio nuts. Professionals don't do that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can do it wrong. That. No. No. Now that's extreme, but no. No. No on type, no on images. My editors, if they caught me doing something like that, which they know it would have never, but if they caught another art director doing something like that, or a graphic designer, they would be like, stop it. You know better. You're supposed to be a professional. Don't do that. Angry squished monkey.
So when you have an active pointer and you want to place that object, element,
yeah, when
you want to maintain the proportion, you use your pointer with Shift Command being held down.
First, when it's a loaded cursor, I just pop it in where I want it to go. And then I need to resize it, so it's Shift and Command, and I'm holding those down, and they're still held down and depressed. At the same time, I click an anchor point and pop it into the grid. Now, Snap 2 Grids is on, so it pops it right in there. You don't have to labor over perfection when Snap 2 Grid is on. Now, if I wanted to align something to the monkey horizontally, here's how I pull a grid line down. I usually wait till I start designing before I start building my horizontal grids, because you just don't know what's going to be what. So I pull from the ruler. Now, horizontal ruler, I go up there, and in the numbers area where there's little tick marks, I click and I drag, and I pop it right down to the bottom of that picture of that monkey. That gives me a point of alignment for things that will be to the right of that monkey, whether it's right and below or right and above. Okay? So horizontal grids, I don't focus on them too much while I'm building grids. because as my grandpa used to say, it's peeing up a rope. You're not getting anything accomplished. It just comes back at you and makes a mess. Yeah, ooh.
Thanks for the imagery.
Hey, I'm from the farm. We have all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So you guys don't pee up a rope. Just wait till your horizontal grid. Wait till you place some stuff and get them aligned to the vertical grid before you start pulling horizontal guides. Okay. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Okay.
Actually, now that I think about it, it could be worse.
Yeah. We'll not go there. Okay. So here, I'm not going to put any horizontal grid lines in. Not in the beginning, not when I'm sketching and stuff. It's a waste of your time to think about them until you start getting into it a little further. Okay? So when I tell you not to do something, I will show you why. Okay? Does that make sense? I won't just say, don't do that, it's industry standard that you don't do that. I may say that, but I will also share with you why. Because it's one thing to be told not to do something, and it's another thing to understand why you don't do something. If I don't explain something like, or go there, please ask me to do so if you want to know the reason. Okay. Hi, monkey. But isn't this just the most interesting thing? A 3-column grid out of an 8-column grid. Okay, it may not be the most interesting thing today, but it is worthwhile to know that you can go across columns and you have a lot more options. So when I'm having these little black boxes in here, I can go across 4 columns, and on this one I might go across another 4 columns this way. Oops, hello. This is just me clicking on little anchor points. I'm not doing anything fancy. And here I might have a picture right here. And the most recent version of InDesign, these more recent versions, it will let you know when you're aligned to the other elements, so you don't even have to drag a horizontal line in there in the first place. It's really, really nice. And sometimes I will try to figure out if there's a piket in between those or not. Now if I hit the W key, it pulls the grid lines away, and this is what I would get if I were printing. W stands for what you see is what you get. W. If I'm in a type box and it's active, it's going to type a W. And I'm like, oh darn it. But that's the print preview. Okay. Now I'm giving you a crash course in grids today. This is pretty crash compared to what I got when I was 15. But you guys are much older. You guys are older than 15. Some of you are 19, some of you are 29, some of you are 39. Okay. And yes, Scott, 39. You look really good for 39. And me, I'm 29. Okay. Now, some of you guys, this picas thing is like, oh my God, it's the bane of my existence. This thing says it's 60 by 60. Ugh, I hate picas. Now, you have to get used to picas a little bit, folks. And I really probably shouldn't share this with you, but I'm going to anyway. How do you change this document from picas to inches? Brendan, you've already figured it out? So Bryce told you. Bryce, so you already knows. Bryce and Brendan, how you do it?
You just click on InDesign at the top, and then go down to preferences.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Units and increments. And you just say, hey, give me some inches here. Okay, that's one way. That's one way. Now, the other way. Anybody know another way?
You can just right-click at the top.
Right-click at the top at the ruler itself and choose inches. The only bad thing is that'll only do it for that ruler. You have to go over to the other ruler and do it too. Right-click, inches. So if you want your horizontal and vertical measurements to both be inches, you can either right-click on both of those rulers, or you can do like Bryce and Brendan back there figured out. You can go to preferences and set the horizontal and vertical to inches. Okay? However, if I'm telling you something is measured in picas, and I'm giving you something in an exercise, you may have to toggle back to picas, okay? Some of you guys are just maddened by the whole idea of picas. Just maddens you. Yeah, and I was taught with picas from the get-go, so for me it's like, and I have pica rulers, and everything typographic was always in picas when I was being trained as a designer. So I'm used to it. Okay. Now, we have these grids. What do we do with them? We need to sketch. We need to sketch using a grid. Here they are. Okay, give me a pen and I'll start drawing. Give me a marker. I'll start drawing on the computer, right? Yeah. Or maybe tape a piece of tracing paper over there. Well, that's a lot of strain there for you. So I'm going to discuss with you guys how to print your grids in thumbnail size so that you can use them, and you'll put tracing paper over them so when you're sketching, you don't have, one, the grid, you don't want the lines to show up in your sketches. Line is an element of design, and if you don't intend that line to print, it should not be in your sketch. So I always print these out, these grids, and I put tracing paper over the grid, and that's how I sketch. And it's funny, everybody always says my sketches look so darn nice. And for those of you guys who are like, I can't draw, I'm not asking you to draw, I'm asking you to sketch or trace. Tracing is wonderful. But when I'm sketching, oftentimes I have people over my shoulder, clients or bosses. And it's unnerving when you're young and then you're first breaking into the field. But now I would rather sit there with a client by my side and sketch. And after I've talked to them and we've started brainstorming, and I'll actually do sketches right there on the spot. God bless you, Larry. Let it out. It actually blows your brain cells up, by the way, the pressure. I don't mind if you let it out. But, Larry, do you ever sketch with a person sitting right there?
Yeah.
Why? He does. Why?
So they get an idea of what I see.
They get an idea of what you see. And do sometimes they say, no, that's not really what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? In a 10-minute session with your client, you can get on the right page right quick. But if you walk away and you don't show sketches and you drive back to the meeting and then all of a sudden you are totally on the wrong page, you've wasted a lot of time. So a true collaboration with the client for me means I'm going to sit there and sketch out a couple things. Then I'll take them back to the office and I'll refine them and make them obviously beautiful for them to go, ooh. And you know what? Psychologically, what that does to the client, what does that do to the client psychologically? They feel safe. They have control. They have a degree of control. Aha. When a client that wants to have a little bit of hand in mind in what you're doing for them, when they want that, sketching with them sitting there is not a bad idea. Now, if they're like, oh, just do what you want, I trust you, you're the professional, hopefully they really mean that. You come back and they're like, oh man, I would have never thought something like that. That's wonderful. So I don't mind collaborating with a client like that. It makes my job easier, and you know what? Approval process is quicker. I can get it into production, and I get paid quicker. Uh-huh. Larry says he's about the money. He's like, give me my $350 for that logo. Done. Instead of drawing it out, having it long and drawn out for a few weeks of bantering. You mean this? No, I mean, oh. Guys, so sketching, even photographers, I've had to work with photographers, and I sketch for the photographers. I've had to actually art direct photo shoots from many, many states away because we couldn't afford to fly down there and art direct it. So I had to sketch out basically certain compositions and say, this is kind of what I'm looking for, and this is what I plan to do with your photographs. So these are the kind of photographs I need and the kind of compositions. So I've had to communicate with photographers, and I'm sure they appreciated that. That way because you know how hard it is to re-photo shoot? Or do video? Storyboarding, the same thing. Video is horrible to try to reshoot. Photography is second horrible. Video is first horrible to try to reshoot. So sketching is imperative. Now, I'm not saying you all have to be like Rembrandt. Sometimes the stuff I was sending to the photographers looked like Picasso. Later in life Picasso. But they understood. I visually communicated. Okay, now in order to sketch using these grids, I'm going to delete this business I put on here, including the horizontal grids. Now, guys, printing costs you money. It's not really super expensive, but it doesn't cost me anything, okay? So what I'm going to do as a favor to you, at least at this point, is I will actually give you the grids printed out. Okay? I'll save you some nickels. Deal?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I heard that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you a 2-column grid, a 3-column grid, a 4-column grid. Oh, I need to build a few more. I'm going to get a 5 and a 6 and an 8. Okay? So let me insert a few more pages. I'm actually going to do 2 pages after that one. The 8-column grid will be last. So this one's going to be my 5-column grid. Wish I had a keyboard shortcut. And this will be our 6-column grid. See, when you know something, you can go really fast. And this will be our 8-column grid. I'm not going to worry about 7. Is that okay with you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to have 6 different grids to work with on this. And I will walk you through a little bit of the printing of this because you won't have a nice teacher who will do this for you every time. You may be working on another project that I'm not going to be around, and maybe it's for a client even, and you want to print a grid out so you can deal with it. So let me save this first. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? We'll save it as grids. Project 1. Whoops. All right. Now our printers are working. I took a good portion of time before the semester to test them from every lab. They are working well this semester. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go to Print. I'm just going to print to the black and white printer. There's no need to print color on this, right? Why waste the ink? That stuff's expensive. So our black and white printer is the HP 8150. It's black and white. We have 2 color printers. They're the same model. They function the same way. They're really nice. They're very, very, very tricky, though. I will teach you, I will share with you how to deal with those printers so that you don't have problems. We have so many students that either don't take great notes or have forgotten, or maybe they didn't know and they just print and nothing ever comes out, and they're here 4 hours later and nothing still comes out. Okay, so printing is real tricky. Can be. But this is a black and white printer. I'm going to go to Setup, and I want this to be a letter size document. Okay, so there's General and Setup. Now, I'm going to print thumbnails because that's what we're going to be sketching. Is it almost time to go?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes. Oh, geez. Well, how about this? How about I'll print these? It's not time to sketch yet. How about I'll print these on Tuesday? Or have them ready to? Well, I need to share with you how to print. And then you can have them to sketch with when sketches are due. Okay? Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Did you learn about grids today? Okay. I'm going to actually stop the recording, and then after class is over, I'll take the time to upload it in the event that you get lost in it. Okay? So I'm going to cancel the printing. However, it's kind of cool because you can print several of these up at one time, so they're smaller, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'll give them to you on Tuesday. So I'm going to cancel this. I saved it. And let me stop this recording, and you guys can come up and you can sign out. The sign out sheet is ready.